focus is managing your sales channel. So whether that's retail or e-commerce, and then everything, those other four disciplines support those efforts, if that makes sense, right? Like in essence, we want to, manage your retail presence. We want to manage your e-commerce presence. It also brings in our account managers who can help make sure they're helping you forecast for inventory, that you're being profitable, that you have a good strategy. And then the next, because I think of especially, again, e-commerce is my specialty. So when I think about that piece, I think about you've got to have that foundation of a strong operations platform. If you don't have available inventory, nothing else matters. If you don't have listings active and live, nothing else matters. If you don't have a healthy seller account, nothing else matters. And so, the first goal of any brand would bring on board as an e-commerce part of the business is, do you have a healthy operations in place? If not, let's fix that first. And then that second piece is creative. If you don't have a good storefront, landing page, product page, videos, infographics, A plus content, all those things, it doesn't matter how much traffic I drive to you. You I've just wasted a lot of your time and money if you don't have a page that converts, and so we focus heavily on that, 'cause that's where the creative part of our services come in. And then the last piece is advertising. So our retail media and advertising services come in after that operational foundation's been built. We've got a good creative foundation, landing page foundation. Then comes in the advertising, which again, I feel like is one of the more complicated pieces of the business. I mean, it's all can be complicated, but with advertising, I've just seen so many brands throw away so much money unnecessarily. Whereas other brands, they can get the other two pieces right on their own many times, but advertising piece seems to be the biggest struggle. So kind of the short answer to your question is, we see retail and e-commerce as the drivers of our business. And then all those other four disciplines are there to support those two parts of the business. We've got a vice president of retail who is expert in product design, in packaging, in building relationships with the buyers at Walmart and Tractor Supply and others. And so it's a slightly different playbook for the retail management. But logistics is a really important part of that. Their design team is an important part of the product design and packaging. And so they use those other four disciplines, in a slightly different way than the e-commerce team does. But I do see kind of retail and e-commerce, and then the other four are down here at the bottom supporting both what Patty and I are doing on the retail and e-commerce side. I've never seen generalists do a very good job in these. You've got to have deep experience in your respective field. I worked with an agency on behalf of a brand once. The brand asked me to come and consult for them. They'd hired an agency, and they had one guy pretty much trying to do everything, trying to do the copy, trying to run the advertising, and it was mediocre. It was fine. It was keeping the lights on, but it wasn't great in their sales. When I moved over to Nile, I kind of brought them with me, and we definitely started seeing increase in their sales for the first time in 12 months. So
Nice. Do you have any main strategies for acquiring new customers for your agency? I know that's something that and it seems like all agencies are always struggling with and trying to scramble.
it's one of the hardest parts of the business is creating that sales pipeline and that steady stream of we have kind of three primary go-to-market motions that we use. And one is just cold outbound. We collect lists and so our names and data and look at their accounts and think, okay, is this someone that we think we can help? If so, let's email them, send them a LinkedIn message, see if we can get their attention and their interest. That's harder. It's got a lower conversion rate, but doing it at scale, we get some good numbers there. And then attending trade shows and events. We're at SHOT Show next week. So it's a sporting goods show with shotguns and rifles, things like that. And so we'll have a presence there next week, and we'll be talking to brands who are looking for support. And then we'll be at Prosper Show as well. And then why am I blanking on the third? Oh, of course, just traditional inbound content marketing. We're starting to get that off the ground. We didn't do really a whole lot of that last year at all, but that's a priority for 2025 is we're going to be heavily spending a lot of time and money just getting our content engine up and going and creating more content to kind of pull people in that way.
Any specific questions you want to talk about? I'm curious, kind of, you said omni-channel, advertising. I'd love to know more about your data analytics, what that looks like, what numbers you're measuring, how you work with clients to set these goals, not just on revenue, but also profit, and maybe any challenges for 2025 and how you're standing out against cheap Chinese competition.
Yeah. As I've been getting my thoughts together for 2025, what is next? What is happening? Some of the challenges I see are around, I'll speak of one that's happening Monday. Amazon has just, and it's not new that Amazon's changing their title requirements, but they're changing their title requirements again. But what is the newer part and what I think is something sellers need to be more prepared to navigate is Amazon has stated that if you don't change your title to be in compliance within 14 days, we're going to change it for you. And we've seen that started to happen over the last 6 months or so where Amazon's AI is like, "Oh, we think we can write your bullets better. We think we can," they've Amazon's been going in with its AI and testing some changes, and I've heard horror stories of sellers, saying that they, completely changed the meaning, or they're actually using a word that got us suspended because it was a prohibited word. And so we've got some challenges there as Amazon continues to lean into AI. I said this before at the beginning of the call, a lot of Amazon's tech launches half-baked, quite honestly, but I don't think that's accidental, I think that's intentional, I think they wanna get it out into the wild, see what breaks, and then fix it, if you will, and so I think we'll see some advances this year from Amazon in AI, in their creative generation, video generation, copy generation. I don't ever think it'll be perfect, and I don't think a seller should ever rely 100% on AI, even with advertising, even though AI solutions have been around for quite some time. You've gotta have that human element to mold it, babysit it, whatever you wanna call it. So it's kind of that question of how do we leverage AI the right way? How do we manage Amazon's AI solutions? How do we just not have a Me Too product, and it levels the playing field for those Chinese sellers, right? If Chinese sellers are using, before it was easy to spot a Chinese seller, the English wasn't great. Infographics had kind of a different quality to them. But now that everyone's using the same AI tools, that kind of levels the playing field. And so it goes back to, as a brand, if everyone has access to the same tools to offer the same quality of creative, how do you stand out? And I think it goes back to, do you have a strong brand? Do you have a strong customer base? Are you leaning into omni-channel? Are you leaning into diversifying that revenue so that you don't have all your eggs in one basket? That said, though, Amazon still represents 75% of most online sales. As a business, we are focusing on profitability for our clients. As Amazon fees come up, we just had the reimbursement update from Amazon come out where, instead of reimbursing at MSRP, they're going to reimburse that cost, which doesn't include any freight you may have paid. It doesn't include the time and energy put into getting products to the Amazon warehouse. So that's another small hit to sellers' P&L. So it becomes even more critical for sellers, I think, to be very aware of what their expenses are on a line item, as well as all rolled up, and be managing to their bottom line and not so focused on the top line that they're just bleeding money out the bottom. So that's something that we're passionate about and I'm thinking about this year. We've been watching very carefully as well the TikTok drama, but obviously took off last year and everyone kind of jumped on that. It's been, in our experience, hit and miss on who's successful on TikTok. We haven't really seen other than those who have strong influencers, who that's been the key, is you've got to have a good set of influencers to push you on TikTok in order to make TikTok shops work. So we kind of watch that with interest as a way to, hey, this could be something. Of course, as the Supreme Court rules shortly here, hopefully today or Monday, as the Supreme Court gets ready to rule on that, as the Trump administration steps into office. I know Biden just said he's not going to enforce the ban over the weekend. He's going to wait for the new administration to get into place and just not worry about the 36 hours that are between when the ban starts and when Trump takes office. But I don't think the creator economy is going away. I think it will just, whatever happens to TikTok, I think it will just, it will continue to exist in some form somewhere. So whether it's a TikTok platform, whether it's YouTube Shorts, that's one thing we're kind of focused on now as well, is we have some relationship with influencers and creatives, and we think that's a really strong way to launch a brand, is to have an influencer behind it, because that just, we have an influencer we worked with who he launched a Shopify store and did like $2 million in 2 months just because he was such a well-known YouTube personality. And so we're launching them on Amazon and helping that. So I kind of ramble a little bit. I don't know if I answered your question, but those are the things that have been kind of top of mind to me. Going back to the profitability place piece, not only is Amazon taking more of your profit in terms of operational dollars in FBA fees or reimbursement fees, but advertising's still expensive. It's getting more and more expensive to get your brand in front of somebody. You have to now go up the funnel, and up the funnel, advertising is expensive. Video advertising, connected TV, streaming TV. I see everyone trying to ride the DSP wave, but the reality is you're not going to be successful in DSP until you have a very strong sponsored, whether that's Walmart or Amazon. You got to have a strong sponsored ad presence before you ever invest a dollar into DSP. Otherwise, you're just throwing that dollar away. So really being smart about full funnel advertising strategies, where the bottom is, you have a solid bottom of that funnel before you're investing in the top of the funnel.
No. How much is your Amazon advertising efforts on more simple campaigns, as some might say, like just sponsored products, sponsored brands, a little more, versus kind of DSP, sponsored brands, sponsored videos? Is that more of a focus for you guys?
It depends on the brand. Some brands are simply, just really need us to focus on the foundation and 100% of their advertising is sponsored. Other brands, once you get to a level about $20,000 a month in sponsored ad spend, that's when we start talking about DSP. I would say optimized sponsored ad spend. That's when we start talking about DSP. And I've worked with brands who we've had 50% of their ad spend in sponsored and 50% at DSP, and it's worked very, very well. But that's a brand spending, they're doing 60 million a year in sales, and I'm right now blanking on their ad spend budget, but it was, I want to say, between 100 and $200,000 a month in advertising spend that we split between the two platforms, and did a lot of streaming TV and things. So it really is, there's not a one size fits all for any brand. We do both, but we'll kind of custom tailor to what that brand needs. XPN is a data analytics platform only. One of the first partnerships we signed at XPN earlier this year was with Sky. Sky provides their customers with the campaign management tools and some very basic AMC data analytics. And then for their clients who need more advanced data analytics, that's where XPN comes in. We provide them with a much more advanced data analytics dashboard. And then with like some playbooks, for example, of, hey, go analyze this, look for this. And then when you see these trends, make these changes in the Sky platform to adjust your budget, to adjust your bids, to adjust your targeting. And so it's kind of an add-on tool to campaign management tools like Sky or PackView or something like that. We're not trying to pay in the campaign management space. We're solely focused on data analytics, leveraging Amazon's marketing cloud and other data clean rooms. And so, 5-10 year plan is to be including all sorts of data clean rooms, not just Amazon's, to help create kind of a rich environment for any online advertiser.
That was some very helpful, very interesting things. I didn't really format it like a podcast, but it's still a super interesting conversation. I do need to get going in a couple
Yeah, so
minutes,
yeah.
but